That's the first major event, is he is gifted Pegasus. The next major life event of Bellerophontes is that he accidentally kills somebody. So, even if you're blameless, he knows that murder is wrong, and so he needs to be cleansed of his wrongdoing. So he goes to Proitos, the king of Argos. And while he's there, Antea, the wife of Argos, falls in love with the young, notably well-endowed hero. But Bellerophontes, being blameless, perfect as he is, says, "Another man's wife, I could never. I have sins to purge." And so he says, "Sorry, babe, I just can't. You have a husband." And so her, having been scorned by the rejection, goes to her husband, King Proitos, and says, "Would you be killed, O Proitos? Then murder Bellerophontes, who tried to lie with me in love, though I was unwilling."
Oh,
But
what the
Proitos,
fuck?
yeah, but Proitos, he looks at Bellerophontes and he says, yeah, I can't do that. Maybe it's the winged horse, or maybe it's the dude's rippling muscles, but either way, he says, yeah, babe, I'll handle it. And he writes a letter. He writes a letter to her dad, who's also a king, and he says, "Hey, sending this guy your way. Please kill him." Hello, and welcome to Notes from the Oracle. I'm Connor, and together with Jack, my co-host from Cabin 6, we're going beyond Half-Blood Hill to take a closer look at the electrifying mythology of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Book 1, The Lightning Thief. Chapter 13, I Plunge to My Death, which is the first chapter in our 2-chapter mega episode.
Unprecedented, Connor.
Unprecedented indeed. This is the chapter I've been waiting for. I skipped the last one, but now we're at the real good stuff. Crazy
That's right.
action. Jack, I'm excited about the action. That's how you know it was sick action.
That's true. I was wondering, I was going to pick your brain on that because if you recall, the last time we discussed action, you said, "I don't want it. I don't need it. It's boring and it gets in the way of the stuff I actually care about." So to hear that you were like, woo, excited about it, that makes me happy.
It was a good chapter. I really enjoyed this one. 13 is such a side quest in the grand scheme of things, and I think that's
Oh,
what
yeah.
makes it perfect. This is exactly what you would expect out of a demigod road trip adventure across America.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. And I mean, I've said it before. This is the kind of stuff that I love the most about, especially this initial book. All the little side stuff that they get to do, the different aspects of the demigod world throughout America, I think is really cool.
It's
And
just got
we
such
see that
character.
it does have such character, and we see that all throughout the chapter. It starts off with them going through America the Beautiful itself via Amtrak, through hills, over rivers, past the amber waves of grain, the proper heartland of the United States. And he's famous now. He's making a name for himself. You know it's 2005 because there are newspapers everywhere.
I know.
So everywhere there's a newsstand, Percy Jackson's name is plastered on it. We see a little bit of the mist and how it actually interacts with pictures. Percy is not holding a sword in this picture of him getting off the Greyhound bus, but instead this strange metallic blur, could be some sort of baseball bat or a lacrosse stick. And we basically get this brief recap of what we know happened on the Greyhound bus with the Kindly Ones. And we also learn that Gabe Ugliano, very unlike him, offering up a cash reward, leading to Percy's capture.
I guess that 7-layer dip is worth a lot to him.
Maybe he's gone without it long enough now. He's like, I will give at least like $20 to somebody who can get my wife back.
Yeah. Oh, I loved the little mist references through here. And especially what was fun about the newspaper blurb is that it gives you what the mortal's perspective is. Same with the photo, which is the blur. It's just a really cool way to depict how the mist actually works. Because I think without an example that's kind of concrete like this, it can be kind of confusing to go, so what does that actually look like? And I like the idea that a 12-year-old with a sword just turns into maniacal swinging of some sort of sports implement that could still hurt someone.
Yeah, it kind of brings home the idea of it's your brain filling in the pieces with what it would think would be logical. Because I like, again, Percy knows what he should be looking at, and it's like a Rorschach test. He's like, it's a bat or a lacrosse stick or something. Like, it's not super specific. He just knows it's not what it actually is. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and to your point about the newsstands in general having physical copies of newspapers, the other thing that really caught my attention was when they're on the train, Percy mentions that all the adults were buried in their laptop computers
Yep.
or
Laptop
magazines,
computers.
which is
Yep.
just like, this book's early 2000s is showing.
Oh, yeah. 2 years before the iPhone, iPod Touch, I think maybe just became a thing, maybe, is a different time.
It really was. And just the idea of this not reading everyone was buried in their phone and instead saying a laptop computer is just foreign in 2025.
Oh, yeah, and you know that those laptop computers had the little red nubbin in the middle of the keyboard that you
They're
could
so
use to, like,
chunky.
scroll. You know what I'm talking about, right? The
Oh,
little
yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it outside of, like, the keyboard clit. You know what
It's
I
the
mean.
little rubber bit. I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yes,
Yeah.
the little nubbin.
I hate to tell you that I do think the keyboard clit might be the best way to describe
I don't
that.
know what else it would be.
Frankly, I think someone should go update the Wikipedia page.
I
Whatever it
agree,
was
do that
called,
right
it's
now.
this now.
It's the keyboard clit, that's right, we found it, finally.
But, of course, because all of these adults are buried in their computers and magazines, they're missing the real beauty of nature around them, which, as you've described, this is the heart of America, so there is beautiful landscapes, but Percy's also seeing all sorts of fun mythological creatures. He sees a family of centaurs, one of which is a young child that waves at him, which is just adorable. And
Mhm.
then another time he says he could have sworn it was a lion, except that lions don't live wild in America, and this thing was the size of a Hummer. Its fur glinted gold in the evening light. And I went and found if there's another reference to this, because I was like, that sounds like the Nemean lion that Hercules kills. And it is the Nemean lion, because when Percy runs into the Nemean lion in the Titan's Curse a few books later, he specifically goes, oh my gosh, I've seen that thing before.
I've seen
I
this
was
guy.
riding a train. Exactly. I was riding a train to Denver and I saw it on our way there. So that is the confirmed Nemean lion. They did
Damn,
also,
legendary creature just
yeah,
strolling around middle America.
just leaping through the trees in a quick show of beauty. Percy just got his Ash Ketchum moment, except instead of
Yeah, he
seeing
saw his
Ho-Oh,
Ho-Oh.
yeah,
He's destined for greatness now.
he is destined for greatness. They do mention, as I just pointed out, that they are headed for Denver because the reward money from returning the Poodle Gladiola only got them this far.
Yes, and not the best tickets either. They're getting, like, economy class, not a lot of leg room, definitely not traveling in style. But I do like how Percy is cognizant of not drooling in his sleep because Annabeth is sitting right next to him.
And
And
he has to
Connor,
look cool.
he's gotta look cool for Annabeth because even if he doesn't want to admit it, he's got a little crushy on her.
Children's love. How cute.
It's adorable. Grover is snoring incredibly loudly. He's bleeding, and it is waking up Percy. Perhaps for the best, because in his sleep, Percy's been letting some secrets fly, whether he knew it or not. Annabeth asks very pointedly, so, who wants your help? Percy says, I don't know what you're talking about. She says, well, when you were just asleep now, you mumbled, I won't help you. Who were you dreaming about? And because Annabeth knows, it's like, dude, you're talking in your sleep. You're having a weird demigod dream. This could be of vital importance to us. Who's asking you for help?
Yeah, Annabeth is always right on top of it. And a side note, this is the first time that we've had a demigod dream that because it's repeated, we just skip over it. We jump
Yep.
straight to the aftermath of it, and I thought that was interesting. And Percy is reluctant to tell Annabeth, but he eventually fully describes what was going on. He describes the voice and everything, and he mentions that this was the second time he's heard it, but that's actually not true. He probably just didn't realize it the first time. It's only the second time in recent memory. Because this would have been the same voice that also appeared in the Eagle versus Horse stream back at
Hmm.
Montauk in chapter 3, I believe.
Yes.
Not that it's
Yep.
particularly relevant, but it is interesting to note that even Percy hasn't put together that that's the same figure and the same theme of the dreams.
He's still viewing them as kind of disparate.
Exactly, which is interesting because it means he's not connecting all of the dots quite yet. And Annabeth
Mhm.
is also starting to have to try and connect these dots. This is a line that I mentioned that is really interesting. Annabeth was quiet for a long time. That doesn't sound like Hades. He always appears on a black throne and he never laughs. Which,
Mhm.
first of all, she's probably only actually seen and heard Hades the once when she visited Olympus last year, unless they've gone on other field trips to Olympus, which wouldn't be unreasonable. Maybe if it's like an annual trip, that would make sense. So that would give her some space. But also, I trust her memory well enough to know that, like, hey, it's understandable to be concerned here. But immediately, I like that she's catching on and we're getting more of those small details that not everything is quite as it seems.
Yeah, the math is not mathing. It's just not adding up, and I love that Annabeth is, just because she's incredibly smart, the one to start putting together that there are some logical gaps here. He doesn't sound like that. He doesn't look like that. That's just not his visage. And help me rise from the underworld. I mean, like, I guess that means war with the Olympians, but that doesn't make any sense. Why does he want you to bring the Master Bolt if he already has it? So she's already scratching her head a bit. And kudos to Percy. He starts thinking about it too. That little peanut that's rattling around in his brain, it's starting to actually do some work. Because he's like, it is a little bit weird, especially when on the bus, the Furies, these emissaries of Hades, said, "Where is it? Where is it? Where?" And so he's just like, yeah, I guess that's a little odd. Again, we don't have the full picture puzzle just yet, but it seems like the puzzle we are piecing together isn't the picture we were expecting.
Yeah, which is cool.
It
It's
is really
fun
cool.
both that we get to start to see Percy's implicit trust that, oh, well, if Annabeth says that that's not right, maybe I need to think on this more because it
Mhm.
probably isn't right then. And also, it's just fun to see the characters piecing it together because we as the readers also don't quite have enough. Like, if this is your first time reading it, I don't think that readers have enough to fully piece together the picture.
Oh, absolutely not.
But it's trickling in, and each detail does get you closer. And I like that you can feel like you're moving at the same speed as the characters. I think that's
Mhm.
well done for the mystery aspect of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I don't feel like there's been any crazy, like, rug pull. It doesn't feel like BS. There hasn't been something dropped into our lap where it's like, "All right, well, where did that come from?" Everything
Yeah,
has been predicated off of something else, and even when we get new information, it feels like it, again, logically makes sense. Now we know, yeah, that's just not Hades' MO. We didn't know that before. Hades was just this kind of amorphous being that we knew was in the underworld and was sending out monsters to hunt down Percy. But now we know, no, we have somebody here who has, at the very least, by proxy, dealt with him before, and something's up.
yeah. And I would say that just about halfway, just over halfway through the book, is the perfect place to start really establishing those seeds of
Mhm.
you've got the wrong idea. So for the back half of this novel, you really need to be reconsidering and recontextualizing the clues. I think that's a great place
Yes.
for it. I think it's really fun. It's good writing.
Yep.
The other thing that
Wholeheartedly
is
agree.
very fun is I mentioned, Jack, that I would call out Annabeth if I ever felt she was wrong.
Yes.
I didn't make a huge deal of this because I don't know that it is, one, something that she would have known, and I think she's in the right ballpark to say what she says. She says, Percy, you can't barter with Hades. I point this out, though, because in her mind, she probably has never seen anyone barter with Hades, and therefore it cannot be done. She's never heard of someone successfully bartering with Hades. However, going forward, there will be at least two instances where Percy barters with Hades quite successfully. So, the first, of course, is this book. When they get to the underworld, they will barter regarding Percy's mother and leaving the underworld and the Master Bolt and all of what that entails, and we'll get there. But
Mhm.
then, in the Demigod Files, the kind of between series set of short stories, you've got another instance of where Percy barters with Hades. Because Persephone commissions a new symbol of power for Hades, a dark blade that has a key embedded in it that can free and trap souls in the underworld. And then the sword in the short story is called the Sword of Hades. The sword is stolen by Ethan Nakamura. Percy, Thalia, and Nico recover the sword, take it back to Hades, and Percy says, I will only give you this new sword, this symbol of your power, if you swear on the river Styx that you will never use it against the gods. And Hades agrees and swears to Percy's terms. So Percy, on more than one occasion, actually does successfully barter with Hades.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to go up to bat for Annabeth. I think at this point in time, she is 100% correct, but I don't think she's counting on the fact that Percy is the confounding variable.
He is.
He is the exception to the rule. He has always been an exception to the rule, and he will continue to be an exception to the rule. And where does Annabeth thrive? The rules. So I think it's incredibly in character, and I don't know that as of right now, she understands that she's standing right next to the confounding variable that will
The wrench in
allow
every plan.
exactly the wrench in every plan that will allow that what she views as immutable character fact to actually change.
I totally agree. And that's why I said I don't feel like this is a huge gotcha moment for her where it's like that is
Mhm.
blatantly wrong. Because I think truly every piece of information that she probably has up to this point would lead her to this conclusion.
Yeah.
So,
Now, I will say, Connor, I will say, I thought I was going to drop a little bomb later, but there's a part in this chapter where I actually thought Annabeth was wrong. So I'm
mm,
surprised you mentioned this early on, because I think there's another spot where it is, I would say, egregious what she's doing in terms of it being a bad move.
if we're talking bad moves, yes, we will get to that. But this seemed like
Mhm.
statement of fact. Can I challenge a single statement of fact?
Okay, fair.
But nonetheless, they move on from that. They have their discussion regarding how Percy says he offered my mother in trade. Who else could do that? And Annabeth is, again, as we said, she's kind of mulling this over. They're trying to figure it out. They're not quite there yet. And I guess the answer to the discussion regarding Percy's mom is Kronos is just lying because he's evil and he doesn't care if he lies.
Yep.
We do get from there a reference to Percy messing with the ring on her necklace yet again, as Percy's trying to figure out more of what's going on. And finally, she breaks, Annabeth cracks, and they move toward the discussion of her dad. And actually, right before that, I do think it's also relevant to talk about the reason that Annabeth hates Hades so much is because he specifically did send all the monsters that inevitably led to Thalia's treification.
Yep.
So it makes sense that Annabeth would be distrustful and say things like, you can't barter with Hades.
Yeah,
So,
well, I think any demigod should be distrustful of Hades. Every story that involves the underworld ends in horrid tragedy.
yeah, it is
So
very
I
smart
think
to
she's
fear
being
death.
quite prudent, actually.
Oh, yeah.
You also glossed over a line that I thought really hit hard, which is Percy trying to explain to Annabeth like why he's in this headspace of I need to get my mom back. I will get my mom back. She's not lost forever. She can't be. And Percy tries to get Annabeth to sympathize. He says, "What would you do if it was your dad?" And she just immediately quips back, "That's easy. I'd leave him to rot."
I wasn't quite there yet, but yes. I mean, gosh, I get it. She
I
resents
hey,
him.
yeah, I get it too. Based on her subsequent kind of recounting of her childhood, I get the resentment. But I find
Yeah,
that this next section is very, very, very interesting. It's a parallel narrative to Percy, right? Or I guess a flipped parallel mirrored narrative
however
because
you want to put it,
she
she's a foil.
resents her mortal father, but has a great affinity for her godly parent, Athena. She actively praises Athena, says nothing but Athena being wise and just and truthfully the best of the gods. Actively says that Athena got her and guided her to safety and to friends. as she is shitting on her dad. And that is the exact opposite of what it seems like Percy has been going through, which is nothing but love and affection for his mortal mother, who had to put up with siring a demigod kid by herself and raising them in this
Yeah.
incredibly dangerous environment by herself. And him having this now very outspoken frustration and disdain for what he views as an absentee father, his godly parent.
Yeah. Well, and as we've seen across many of the myths we've talked about involving demigod heroes from actual mythology, Athena is the protectress of heroes. And
Mhm.
so it makes a lot of sense that of all the godly parents, she is one of the best because she, by nature, wants the heroes to succeed. Even if she doesn't care about you as her kid, she cares about you as a hero because that is also vitally
Yeah.
important to the ecosystem of gods and men. And so
Yeah.
I like how offended Annabeth is on Athena's behalf, that her father would have even asked Athena to take her back and raise her on Olympus, because Athena probably would want to do that. She would probably want to treat a hero with respect, but she's like, no, Annabeth needs to be treated like a normal child, at least to some extent, to understand her place on Earth so that she can walk between these two worlds as a demigod. You can't
Mhm.
have one without the other.
Yeah. Very good points. I love a good parallel narrative and arc. And I just think that it's cool that we see this again kind of flip on its head from Percy and even Luke, right? We got it. Everybody pull up bingo cards. We're bringing up Luke. This resentment for the godly parent that Annabeth seemingly doesn't have, which at a grander level can show that the gods are capable of being better.
Yeah.
Athena is an example of being better. And if she can do it, why should she be the exception?
And I think the thing that really hits home your narrative foil argument between Percy and Annabeth is she ends all of that with, finally, I took the hint, I wasn't wanted, and I ran away.
Mhm.
And that's really notable because Percy, in his last conversation at Montauk with his mom, comes to the same conclusion. I get it. I'm not wanted. You're trying to get rid of me. And his mortal parent very clearly says, now hold on. That's not true. And don't go telling yourself that's true. And so it makes you start to wonder, did Annabeth's dad actually think this? Or is this just the thoughts of a 7-year-old that didn't have the capacity to process things
Mhm.
more complexly in a household with an adult that was by no means, free of fault. Clearly, her dad is at fault, but it's wondering if he just had the communication skills that Sally had. Would things have been different? Who's to say? I thought that was another very direct comparison. Percy had that exact conversation with his mom, and it went
Mhm.
very differently than Annabeth's experience, which is just, again, very cool.
Yeah.
But as they have this conversation, the train continues chugging along. Ohio races past, which is disappointing for
Good
them.
riddance.
Yep. Disappointing that they had to be there at all.
That's true. Heyo,
Zing. Our Michigander is showing.
Michigander,
Uh,
you gotta represent.
there's another break, and they mentioned that they are 8 days before the summer solstice. So we were at 10 last chapter. We've spent 2 more days moving along. They are passing through some golden hills and over the Mississippi River into St. Louis, which I've actually seen this exact stretch of rail line many
Mhm.
times driving from where I went to school with my now wife, then partner from Indiana University, driving back to her hometown of St. Louis. So I have specifically seen this drive many times, including the Gateway Arch. Rick with his on point descriptions, he says, looks like a huge shopping bag handle over the
Yep.
city, which is
Which
just
is
so
it is
true.
so true. It's right on the money.
It is just a spot on description. If you've been there and you've come in this direction, truly, I can't think of it any other way.
Yeah, and I love that as Percy is internally thinking, "Yeah, that looks like a big old shopping bag handle." He looks over and sees Annabeth very wistfully, almost like with nostalgia, sighing, "Oh, I wanna do that." And Percy's like, "What? What do you wanna do? What are you talking about?" She says, "No, I wanna build something. I wanna be remembered. I wanna build a great monument, not just a great monument, the greatest monument to the gods ever. Something that'll last 1,000 years." It's like, "All right, Ozymandias, chill out. Something about hubris. I get it. Legacy's important, but let's chill a little bit, Annabeth. You're, like, 12 years old." And we get this neat little conversation where Percy, a bit callously at first, kind of dismisses. He's like, "You what? You, an architect?" Because he just can't even imagine Annabeth sitting silently and drawing all day. It seems almost too childish for her. But if Percy knew anything about architecture, he'd know that drawing in architecture is one of the most grueling, mind numbing, horrible processes that have ever been conceived on the face of this planet. So it's actually right up her alley. It requires a lot of diligence as well as the volition and conviction to push through literal torture for hours and hours at a time.
Intense focus.
Yes.
Absolutely. And all of this is just very fun, but you hit on hubris a moment earlier, and I'm now putting together that if Percy is our archetypal greatest Greek hero based largely on Heracles, and Heracles' big defining flaw is his wrath, Athena represents much more our archetypal hero, who largely across the board, their greatest flaw is hubris.
Yep.
And now that I'm thinking about it, her flaw probably mostly across this series would be hubris. This is
Oh, 100%.
kind of an interesting thing to take notice. We have both of our major demigod flaws that we should be seeing from mythology represented in our two main characters,
That's
or our
right.
two main demigod characters. That's very cool.
Mhm. And then, of course, it rounds out with the Trinity with Grover, who's perfect and has no flaws.
Factual. I have nothing
Mhm,
to add.
mhm.
No one touch him. He's so good.
That's right. Best boy. I do like this line as, again, we get this peek into how Annabeth views her godly lineage and her purpose. She says that Athena expects her children to create things, not just tear them down. And then she does a jab at Percy by saying, "Unlike a certain god of earthquakes, I could mention."
Solid dig.
Solid
Continue.
dig. Phenomenal dig. I love the idea that Annabeth views her existence as something that has to be productive. The idea of creating something is so broad, but is a really admirable goal to have. Again, she's using it more for what seems like glory and eternity and legacy. She doesn't want to be forgotten. She wants to be remembered. She wants people to look upon her works and be inspired and in awe. But what I love is what comes next, where Percy is just silent at that. He doesn't have a retort back. He doesn't have a quip and just kind of lets Annabeth sit, and she realizes what she said. She says, "Sorry, that was mean." And Percy, doing exactly what a child of Athena you'd think would do, he tries to create something. He's trying to create an alliance, a sense of common ground. He says, "Can't we work together a little? I mean, didn't Athena and Poseidon ever cooperate?" And Annabeth really thinks this over. I love how Percy plays where she's comfortable. She keeps invoking parents and lineage. And this is what our parents did, and this is what our parents did. So he's like, "All right, let's do that. Give me a time in which they could see past their differences and do something great together." And she gives a very interesting example, a small one, but an interesting one, which is the chariot. She says, "My mom invented it, but Poseidon created horses out of the crests of waves. So they had to work together to make it complete. One wouldn't work without the other." And Percy's like, "Exactly. So we can cooperate too." I love that entire back and forth. I think it's great. It might be my favorite part of the chapter, honestly.
Oh, it's all fantastic. And I mean, there are so many things I want to hit on. The first one is the idea of building something that lasts is so human.
Mhm.
And that's what this podcast is for me. Look, it's not a grand monument to the gods, but it's me putting something out there that'll last and that others can see and know that I existed. I
Yeah.
totally understand the very human desire to make your mark on the world. And
Yep.
then Percy putting the ball in her court like that, he doesn't know that there's going to be an answer of a time when Athena and Poseidon work together. But he's just counting on Annabeth actually knowing enough to be able to give him an answer, show some implicit trust. They're starting to work together. It's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. I think you hit the nail on the head. The concept of legacy is something that only humans, people that can die, care about. Mortals are the people that care about eternity.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a phenomenal read, Connor. I really like that.
It's one of those things that I think when you dig into the core of it, every human goes, yeah, I do want to leave a legacy of some kind.
Yep.
And so it's cool to see our characters having that motivation. Annabeth, we now clearly have an understanding of what she sees as wanting her legacy to be. And I think
Mhm.
it's posing a question for Percy. What do you want your legacy to be? And over the next 4 books after this one, he is going to craft that until he figures it out. And that is where
Mhm.
we will end the whole series. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. It's also another common ground for them. Percy doesn't maybe realize it as concretely or tangibly as Annabeth, but they both just want to be remembered. That is
Yeah.
a formative goal properly at the front of their brains for both of them. They don't want to be left by the wayside. They don't want to be alone. They want to be remembered. For Annabeth, she's viewing it through the lens of great architecture and monuments that people will visit and, again, inspire awe for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And for Percy, it's chopping off Medusa's head and sending it to the gods and saying, fuck you. Remember that I'm
It
here.
is. And both are understandable and valid reactions to
Yeah.
mortality. And with that, they finally stop at the Amtrak station in downtown St. Louis, where they have a 3-hour layover before they head to Denver. And so the rest of this chapter and chapter 14 will all take place in that 3 hours. Grover and Percy are concerned when Annabeth says, "Come on, we're leaving." And they're like, "We're leaving? For what?"
Uh-huh.
And she says, "We're going sightseeing."
Hmm.
Grover, as long as there's a snack bar with no monsters. I
And
assume this is what you take issue with.
this is what I take issue with. This is absolutely what I take issue with. I understand the idea of, yeah, they've got time to kill, just like sitting around here won't really achieve anything. I even understand them wanting to maybe like go to the museum because I know exactly what they're talking about and checking stuff out and maybe trolling around the gift shop. But going into the actual art is so fucking dumb for so many reasons.
Yes. While I'm being
They
hunted, let
literally,
me lock myself in this small
yeah,
room. Sorry,
the
continue.
smallest, like a fucking coffin. All right. First, there's the little elevators that you're supposed to get in. They are like little pills that you climb in. There's barely any space. I've been in them. Have you? Have you ever gone to the top of the arch before?
Funny enough, because Sam grew up there, we never actually went to the arch because she's already
Really?
done it. So we've like sat underneath it, walked around the park, enjoyed a nice
Okay,
sunny day, but we've never actually gone in the arch because apparently
Connor.
it's nice enough.
l- Let me tell you. One, it is incredibly boring.
That's what I
So
thought.
you're not missing much. You saved yourself some time. But two, the little elevator that you're supposed to get in. It's not one that you stand in. It's like a little bathysphere. You're totally encased. It's shaped like almost like an egg. At least that's how I remember it. And you could fit maybe 4 people sitting down, maybe. And you are in a rickety, what genuinely feels like a coffin. It's slow. You hear the kerchunks and whirs of machinery as you are slowly taken to the very top of the arch. And then once you're at the top of the arch, you're stuck. There's nowhere to go if something horrible happens. The only thing you have are what I'd assume would be like a maintenance elevator, or not even an elevator, a maintenance like ladder, or getting into the actual elevator and slowly going back down in what again feels like an old like Ferris wheel or like a carnival ride. So let's just set all that aside that as demigods, you are going to be perfect, easy targets. Going up, being at the very top, and then going back down but also Zeus is after your ass, and you specifically said we shouldn't deal with being in the air. And you're like, ooh, you know what's really good for the art? Looking out from a really high place.
Let's go to the tallest
Let's
building in
go to
the
the fucking
city.
tallest structure in Mrs. Yes! How fucking stupid can they be? That makes no sense. Honestly, it would almost make more sense if it was Percy, like, seeing Annabeth be enraptured by the art and being like, "You know you can go to the top, right?" And her saying, "No, like, that's dumb. We're not gonna do that." And Percy saying, "No. No, no, no. You wanted to travel, you wanted to see things. We've got time to kill. What's the worst that could happen? Let's go. Let's do it."
That
And it would
actually
still
is
be kinda
so
like,
Percy and Annabeth of them.
"It is!"
I truly wish that was the canon version. That's great.
And I don't even wanna go into rewrites and, like, how that would impact once something does go wrong and Annabeth is like, "I knew I shouldn't have listened to you. You're an idiot. This is what I get for trying to do something nice for myself. We should have just stayed at the bus station," or whatever. It would be so ripe, but instead, she just gets weirdly impulsive and doesn't think about any of the consequences, and it really frustrates me. I don't get it.
I just the whole time, it's like, "Oh, poor choices, poor choices." And of course, at this point, Annabeth has only made good choices. So the boys are like, "Oh, what's the worst that it
Oh,
could
sure.
be?"
If
And that
Annabeth
makes
says it's
perfect
okay.
sense. Yes.
Yes.
So they're like, "Oh, whatever, museum. As long as I'm getting jelly beans, this is fine." As Grover just keeps passing snacks to Percy and Annabeth is actually reading the exhibits. But it is crazy. And then the thing that really gets me is Grover, now for the second time, is like, "I smell monsters."
Yes.
And for the second time, they're like, "Ah, it's probably nothing."
Ah, Grover, you're just crazy. It's
Haven't you
fine. The
guys learned
underground
your
always smells like
lesson?
monsters.
Yes! Haven't you guys learned your lesson yet? And so they're just like, as you put it, underground always smells like monsters. It's fine. Percy even has the prickling on the back of his neck as he goes,
Mhm.
"Something feels wrong." And they ignore literally every single one of them.
Yes. Yep. It is mind-boggling how dumb they're all being. Genuinely don't understand it. And for sake of not just basically screaming at them for the rest of the chapter, just know every single thing they do is wrong. Until Percy leaps out of the arch, spoiler, leaps out of the arch, everything they do up until that point is the wrong answer. It's honestly astounding.
It is, they start talking about the Helm of Darkness, and good way to introduce this as well, a few chapters before it's really going to be relevant, get it in our heads. And Percy says, "So he could be here right now." And they're like, "Yep. How
Yeah,
do we know if he's here?" "We don't." "Oh." And Percy's just like, so we're just all the way out in the open in public, and the guy that we think we're running from could just be right around the corner.
yep.
All right, I guess. Let's go back to riding that elevator."
Awesome. Let's head into the sky. The next worst place we could possibly be.
And so they do, and they get shoehorned into a car with a quote, "big fat lady and her dog, a chihuahua with a rhinestone collar." And we will later learn that this woman is Echidna, and this chihuahua is a very well disguised chimera.
What are you talking about? That's her seeing eye chihuahua.
Her seeing eye chihuahua. I do love that Percy immediately is like, "I'm concerned. Something
Yeah,
is wrong."
something's a little up here. Now, I'm also Connor, did you pick up on the fact that Grover should have smelled this?
He did, and they ignored him. Now,
Again? He's while they're in the
no,
elevator,
he
he
doesn't
says,
do it again
"Hey."
while they're in the elevator. He smells it earlier and they ignore him. And then you're right,
Yes.
they literally just
Like,
don't
this
mention it
is
again.
they are in, like, a sealed container with 2 very powerful monsters.
Nope. Nope. They're sealed in a container with one very powerful
Oh,
monster
yes.
and the literal mother of
The
monsters,
mother of monsters.
which
Yes.
is probably worse and should be more obvious.
So, like, wouldn't you think Grover would be like, PU! What the fuck
Yeah.
is this? Oh god, who is this? We gotta get out of here, like, now!
I feel like you maybe could have justified it better if you went, yeah, I don't think it's a real scent because I'm smelling like 7 different monsters right now.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
you could later be like, oh, I get it. It's because she's the mother of all those different monsters. But instead, they're like, nah, let's just casually get in this elevator. It's probably
Let's just
fine.
get in the elevator. Yeah. The concept of Grover being able to smell monsters, or just the idea of monsters and demigods having a smell, very imprecise science. Because I feel like we've talked about it a lot throughout the book. The rules for it just seem to be a big old shoulder shrug. Like, I don't know, it works sometimes, it doesn't work sometimes. It's a plot device.
Yup. I'll be interested to see if that changes it all across future books in the series. But
But hey, it's okay. They're safe now at the top of this
exactly.
small, confined space, 600 feet in the air.
Annabeth announces that she could have stayed up there for hours. And the park ranger says, hey, the deck is closing in a few minutes, which, fun fact, the Gateway Arch is a national park. It's the smallest national park in the entire United States.
I like that. That's a good fun fact.
You're very welcome. I learned it from my wife.
I guess that's true. They don't have a whole lot else happening out there, huh?
It's almost like she lived there. Yeah, you want to know another fun fact about Missouri? It's
Of
that the
course.
government wanted to stockpile a food that could last for a long time. So there are cheese caves. There are hidden cheese caves
Yes!
somewhere in Missouri that are
I've heard of
stocked
these
with
caves.
an
Yes.
American surplus of backup cheese in the event that war takes out our cheese supply.
Yes. I've heard of that. The rat people are just waiting. They're lying in wait for those cheese caves to open up, then they're gonna strike.
That's where the real were rats live. New York, they've
That's
just
a
got regular New York
mhm.
rats. They're big, but they're not were rats. St. Louis, that's where the were rats are.
They're lurking, lying in wait. Alright, I'm gonna
And
take off the conspiracy helmet. Take
set that
this off, put
aside,
that over there.
get back to where we were, which was the arch is closing. And so everyone is getting in line. They're going back down
Everybody's
the
gonna get in
teeny
line.
rickety elevator.
That's right, and Grover and Annabeth get into a car, but, oh, there's already 2 people in there. I know I said I wasn't gonna say anything more. Why are they so dumb in this chapter? Why?
It's
Why
cool,
does
man.
Percy give a fuck about lines or, like, burdening somebody behind him? Just I don't know if you can tell. I just took my glasses off and I'm, like, rubbing the bridge of my nose right now. It just makes no sense why that would be the reason they get split up. Is Percy just saying, "Nah, it'll be more efficient if I wait."
Silver lining, it does lead to a cool monster fight. The
It
actual situation,
does.
it does not make sense.
It does lead to a really cool monster fight. I just wish that monster fight was predicated by people not acting like they lost one of their frontal cortexes out of just sheer stupidity.
It is nice that this is one of the things that in the live action Disney Plus show, they did change this to be a much more reasonable
Yeah.
set of circumstances where Percy shuts the door behind him and says, now you have to go, the door's locked, suck it, I'm
Yep.
sacrificing myself, which feels much more in line with his character in terms of a natural show of sacrifice as opposed to this, I don't want to hold up the line, guys.
I
So,
I'm all about chivalry. You know this about me, Percy Jackson. I'm all about being polite and following the status quo rules.
and he does. He's like, yeah, rules are so important to me, guys. And so Grover and Annabeth, they head on down. Nothing we can do about that.
Yep.
And so the only people that are left is Percy, a little boy and his parents, the park ranger, and the lady with her chihuahua. And as Percy looks at her, she smiles back at him with her forked tongue flickering between her teeth. Oh, wait a minute, forked tongue.
Wait a minute.
Oh, shit.
Oh shit.
Oh, this is bad. Just more classic Rick writing, the wait a minute paragraph break. Forked tongue? Question mark paragraph break?
Yeah. It's so good.
Peak. It's
It's so
so
good.
good. And from here on out, we are rolling. So the lady says, does this look like a good time? We have all these people here as her chihuahua just jumps down and starts growling at Percy. The little kid's like, look, a doggy. His parents are like, that's not a dog. The
Yeah.
dog bares his teeth. It's got foam at the mouth. Yay,
Oh, it's
rabies. It's a
rabid.
chimera with
Yep.
rabies. And it begins shifting as she rolls up her sleeves, and now we see that she has skin that's scaly and green. She's got fangs and pupils with slits like a reptile's. And the chihuahua, as it's growing, it gets to the size of a Doberman, then a lion, and then the bark becomes a roar. And then finally, it's now so big that its back rubs against the roof of the arch as they're waiting for the elevator. And it is described as having the head of a lion with a blood-caked mane and the body and hooves of a giant goat and a serpent for a tail. A 10-foot-long diamondback growing right out of its shaggy behind. The collar is still hanging from its neck, and I love that we can read what it says as it says, Chimera, rabid, fire-breathing, poisonous. If found, please call Tartarus, extension 954.
954.
Which is just fantastic.
It's so great. Now, I'm gonna have my little actually moment here. Connor, Rick made a mistake in describing this chimera, specifically with what it says on its dog tag, and it's a mistake that pops up a couple other times. It says that the chimera is rabid, fair, fire breathing, that is objectively true, and poisonous. But it doesn't actually appear to be poisonous, it's actually venomous.
Ding, ding, ding. Correct.
Did you pick up on that too?
Jack, would you believe if I said that that is the exact thing I wrote in
I knew
regard to
it. See, this is why we're
poisonous?
friends. I knew you wouldn't miss out on an actually moment when it
Oh,
comes to
yeah.
semantics.
Even better, I've got a different actually regarding the depiction of chimeras on the whole for when we get to the myth notes section. But
Great.
this thing is supposed to have a goat head too, and it's missing that. So we'll talk about that
Mm.
later.
But that aside, Percy is fucked. That
Yeah.
semantic error, we're gonna just set that over there. He's so screwed. It doesn't even need to be venomous for him to be screwed.
Nope.
This is just a big ass monster that he is horribly ill prepared for. And again, what is the worst set of conditions to fight in? A small enclosed place high up in the sky. And as the snake lady is starting to get closer, she's hissing in a way that seems like laughter. She says, "Be honored, Percy Jackson. Lord Zeus rarely allows me to test a hero with one of my brood. I am the monster of monsters, the terrible Echidna." Which, couple things. One, oh fuck, it sounds like Hades didn't sick Echidna and Chimera on
Mhm.
Percy. This is from Zeus. That's new. Two, what happens next is literally my exact train of thought, which is Percy saying, because I saw Echidna, and I was like, oh yeah, like that weird anteater thing, which is what Percy says. And then she gets really mad. She says, I hate it when people say that. I hate Australia
God,
because it is an Australian animal that is just the weirdest little guy. If you look up Echidna facts, like everything, it's like from Dr. Seuss. It shouldn't
everything is
exist.
wrong.
It's an abomination.
Oh my gosh. I got such a kick out of that. It truly made me actually laugh out loud to read her saying, I hate Australia.
I hate Australia. She just had to let that out.
Damn, unintentionally Australia-ist?
Yeah.
Or
What can I
deliberate,
say?
very clearly
I
intentionally
was gonna say I actually
Australia-ist.
think it's pretty intentional. She straight up hates them.
She says, for that, Percy Jackson, my son shall destroy you. Wasn't that the plan anyway? Isn't that what Zeus hired you for? Are
Well,
you just gonna
he
give him a pass otherwise?
originally was hired because of the bolt. Now he's gonna die because of that. So it kind of
Uh,
overrode the original command.
it's about motivation.
Yes, exactly.
Earlier, it was purely for business. Now it's personal. Now she's gonna
Now it's
make it hurt.
personal. Exactly.
Well, and with that, of course, a chimera is now charging at Percy. Everyone else is screaming, rightfully so, trying to pry open the emergency exit doors. Percy good guy Percy takes action and says, I couldn't let them get hurt. I uncapped my sword, ran to the other side of the deck, and yelled, Hey, Chihuahua! I like that he's trying to save the innocents. He's trying to do the right
He is.
thing.
This is perhaps the most heroic he's been in terms of bystanders. Instead of having them blow up in a bus, he's actually putting himself in danger to make sure that they're safe.
In
He's
harm's
growing as a
way.
character.
He is, and it goes. Well, I mean, it goes poorly for him, but it goes well in terms of saving the innocents. He
That's true.
manages to pull away the Chimera from that direction as it begins using its fire breath, exhaling like, quote, the world's largest barbecue pit. And
Mhm.
there's an explosion. Percy dives through it. It nearly sears off his eyebrows. And again, all of this is just great action. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
the depiction of the arch literally melting the metal as steam rises around the edges.
Mhm.
There's Percy now finally drawing Riptide. He's got the blade out. He's slashing at the neck. It fails. The blade sparks harmlessly off the dog's collar, or the Chimera's collar, rather. And with that, as he tries to regain his balance, he is toast. The snake wraps around and digs its venomous fangs into Percy. And as he tries to stab Riptide again, it's all over, and the sword is tossed out the hole, gone, headed toward the river. Must have been a crazy disarming to go all the way from the arch to the river. But we'll talk
Oh,
about that
yeah.
more in a second.
I was gonna say, do you know what the actual, like, math of that is? Because it is absurd.
I do not know what the math of that is. I didn't think that I needed to. For anyone who doesn't know, because what happens after this is Percy, the poison is racing through him. He says, Well, this is the end. I've been beaten. I can't let these people die. And so he jumps for the water, and it must be the most insane jump ever because there's no way a human could make this. Now, you could argue that Percy is like tapping into his true demigod strength for a moment, and maybe he is leaping an insane distance. But I do like the show's depiction where he kind of has to drop down and just trust his dad, knowing that he won't fall to his death and the river reaches out and catches him. One, because clearly they were trying to use shots of the actual art, and that's the only way that that can look at all reasonable is if the water comes out to get him.
Yep.
Because it's just, look, I could hammer it home and hammer it home. There's just no way.
There's no way. It's hundreds of feet away. Like, it is just the math does not work.
But here's the thing that actually, look, that just says Rick hadn't actually been to the arch when he wrote this. He looked at some pictures and said, what a cool scene.
Yep. And it
The
is a cool
thing,
scene.
it is a cool scene. The thing that really gets me is Echidna says to Percy, If you are the son of Poseidon, you would not fear the water. Jump, Percy Jackson. Show me that the water will not harm you. Jump and retrieve your sword. Prove your bloodline. Which is just good advice. Why is she giving him good advice?
Yeah. I don't know. It is weird that she was goading him. Maybe because it was like, she's like, I gotta see this for myself. Like, he's fucked anyway. So either A, I shatter his faith in the gods before he dies, or B, oh, it actually works. And now I know, like, yeah, that son of Poseidon, all right. No
That's
ifs,
the
ands,
real
or
deal.
buts.
Yeah, it seemed if your job is from Zeus to kill the kid, get the bolt back, why would you make such a stupid choice?
I don't know, man.
Nevertheless, Percy says that somewhere he had read that jumping into water from a couple stories high is like jumping onto solid asphalt, which the Mythbusters tested. Hello, Mythbusters. Funny seeing you here. And finally, Echidna says, You do not trust the gods. I can't blame you. Better you die now. Again! This is the
Again,
third person.
yep, I have underlined and highlighted that. Dude,
And I say
Percy,
person, but
everybody's on the same page. You should just die, like, immediately.
immortal beings. Three different immortal beings are all like, hey man, you can keep going this way, but it's maybe not a good choice.
It's gonna suck, dude.
I do think that that establishes Percy's selflessness well as a heroic quality. that he's
Mhm.
unwilling to just give up because it's the wrong thing to do. And above that, all three of these people are so right. He has been tormented for book after book after book, and his
Yeah.
life might truly have been easier had he taken up Dionysus and gotten turned into an Atlantic bottlenose.
Mhm. Or just atomized. Just
I mean, that would have
death
been
that is
fine too.
instant and painless. That's what I would have picked. With how the
And
oceans are getting dirtier and dirtier, I don't know that I'd wanna be living there.
Mhm. And so he, realizing that he has no other option, he jumps plummeting toward the river. Questionably, but sure.
Yep. He
And
makes his way largely in the direction of the river, kind of.
before he jumps, he does have a few thoughts that I found notable. The first of which is that he thinks about his father and he actually remembers his father's face for a moment, or rather, the
Mhm,
glow of his smile, implying that Poseidon must have visited him, which does further go to establish that Poseidon does care about Percy, which is very
mhm.
important because Percy's next thought is, well, this isn't the sea.
Yep,
I am so dead.
yep. Dead center of the USA. There was no sea god here.
And that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah. Plummets towards the river.
I think this chapter, as I look back on it now, as we're like actually taking our time with our breakdown and looking over all my notes, it's crazy how good the action in this last 2 pages must have been, 2, 3 pages, to distract me from all of the stupidity that does also exist
Yeah.
in this chapter. Because when I take my
There
time with it,
was
there's a lot of
Mhm.
criticisms.
I'm not gonna lie, Connor. You were hyping up this chapter so much. Like, this is when it starts popping off. It's gonna get crazy. We're going to a wild place. And I read the chapter and I was like, it's all right. I have a lot of problems with this, actually. But yeah, the last 2 pages were really neat.
Yeah, I guess it was one of those things where I think I kind of
It's a
sped
cool
through
set
all of this.
piece.
It's a cool set piece, and I like a cool set piece. There's a few strings that get pulled to get us to that cool set piece that in retrospect are kind of forced.
I don't want to say there was nothing that was egregious about getting us to that set piece. I would be lying. I actually do think what they did was quite egregious. But it wasn't a bad chapter necessarily. We got some really cool character interactions. I again really appreciated the chat with Percy and Annabeth as they talk about their goals and their lineage and how they view the world, and a bit more about Annabeth's very tragic and storied past. And so I'll give it a pass because the beginning was really solid. I'm just gonna ignore the middle, and the end was very fun.
Yeah, but that does bring us to the second chapter in our two
What?
chapter mega episode.
Whoa!
Chapter,
This is crazy.
I know. But just before we move on to the next chapter, are you enjoying this show? Want to help us improve? Leave a review, a comment, or a rating, and let us know what you like. And please, share with your friends. It's the best way to support our show, and it's absolutely free. Chapter 14, I Become a Known Fugitive, which, weirdly, across Percy Jackson titles, feels kinda weak.
Yeah, not a very fun one. I mean, like, it's fun, but I feel like it's missing a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of spice.
The good news is, we pick the spice right back up with Percy's opening monologue for this chapter, which is, I'd love to tell you that I had some deep revelation on my way down, that I came to terms with my own mortality, laughed in the face of death, etc. The truth? My only thought was, ah!
Ah! Yeah, he's terrified. And I
Which is,
love the description of Percy falling. It is not graceful at all. He's not
no.
cool. He looks like somebody that just fell and is just helplessly flopping through the air. The river raced toward me at the speed of a truck. Wind ripped the breath from my lungs. Steeples and skyscrapers and bridges tumbled in and out of my vision. And then, flaboom! Great onomatopoeia, by the way.
I agree.
A whiteout of bubbles. That's just all he sees, a whiteout of bubbles. and he's sinking through the murk, sure that I was about to end up embedded in 100 feet of mud and lost forever.
It's a great description. It's really fun.
It is.
And
It's
then
fast. It only takes up like half a page, too. Like, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It is fast and intense, just like Percy's Fall.
good old Rick with that economical writing yet again. And he comes
Yep.
to, amazed that he's still alive, and at the bottom of the river, which, from an onlooker's perspective, is really, really gross looking. And according to
Yes.
Percy, who's in it, it's really, really gross looking.
It's
I'm not
disgusting.
surprised. Gross. Humans suck.
Yeah. Yep. Silt and garbage and beer bottles and old shoes and plastic bags. There are some cool catfish. Big ass catfish.
And then we get Percy experimenting with his power set a little bit, which is a fun little detail that Rick did not like. This is purely filler. There is half a
Mhm.
page of things that did not need to be in this book, but he just wanted to play around with the powers, and I respect that. It's so fun as Percy finds a lighter and realizing that he's totally dry, sees if he can light the lighter and is able to successfully do so, then picks up a burger wrapper, a piece of paper, that immediately turns dry when he picks it up and sets it on fire. So unnecessary, but I love it. I'm
Oh,
here
yeah.
for it.
It's really neat. I think that's one of the most underrated aspects of Percy's power set. I just think that's so neat.
It's so convenient. Like, you don't think
Mhm.
about the convenient powers that all these people had. Like, we mentioned that satyrs aren't even supposed to get headaches. And
Yeah.
Grover is like, "Oh, you're giving me a headache." I love when we keep getting these little details about dumb power. So I was trying to think about what other gods would have these sorts of silly little powers that would actually be super goated. Can Apollo's kids not get sunburned? That would be crazy,
Ooh, that's a good one.
right? No
That's a really
melanoma.
good one. Mhm.
I couldn't think of any other. I mean, because if you think about, like, if you're Dionysus, maybe no hangovers?
That yeah, I
Wouldn't
was
wanna
gonna
be
say
unable
you
to
get
get
all
drunk.
the benefits of a party, but not the actual after effects. That'd be pretty good.
That would be fun.
I would also think, like, Apollo's kids have to be pretty healthy.
You would definitely think so.
So just like a boosted immune system, I feel like that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, Demeter, maybe. I mean, having a green thumb would be really, really nice. Just
Maybe
whatever
immune to
you
poison
make.
ivy?
Maybe, yeah, maybe immune to certain, yeah, like poisons, poison ivy, poison oak, stuff like that. That'd be really cool. I don't know. I'll have to think more about that. That's a fun thought exercise.
Between Percy's being dry in the water, which is purely a factor of convenience, although it is kind of an important precedent to set, because when he gets out of the water later, no one would recognize him as having been in the water, so no one would think, "Oh, that must be the culprit of the explosion that jumped out of the
Yep.
arch." So it's kind of also good setup. And then, of course, we also hear how Percy's like, "Oh my god, the strangest thing occurred to me. I can breathe. I'm underwater and
Yeah,
I can
I'm
breathe,"
breathing right now.
which is, an important power for someone whose entire power set revolves around water.
Yeah. The adrenaline is pumping, his legs are shaky, his hands are trembling. He's just thinking, I should be dead. I should be dead. I was coming to terms with the fact that I was dying and should be dead, but I'm not. And that's, I mean, shoot, that's a miracle.
It is. And then he hears a voice, a woman's voice, like his mother's. "Percy, what do you say?" And
Yeah, he's got the Professor Oak treatment right now, words echoing in his head.
yeah, and I just love that he's like, "Oh, yeah, um,
Uh,
thanks."
thanks.
No response. The river kinda keeps moving on. We'll learn that this
Mhm.
voice is a Nereid. Now, it's not explained that she's a Nereid this chapter, but Percy kinda looks around, he can see a riverboat's paddle wheel churning above him, and then finally,
That
he sees
big
his
ass
board.
catfish is still floating around too.
Still
He
just
hasn't
hanging
died.
out. I think it's considering if Percy is a snack or not. He's like, "Can I eat you?"
Can
Catfish
I
are
eat
bottom
you?
feeders.
They are, and it's also massive. It is not out of the question. He might be able to eat Percy.
Just wait until he realizes Aquaman powers exist for him too, and he can talk to the fish. We don't get that this chapter, but it would have been very funny if the fish had swam up to him and been like, "Hey, I'm gonna take a bite out of you now. I
Yo,
hope you don't mind." And Percy was like, "Hey, yo, what the fuck? No!"
yeah. You gonna eat that? It's like, what, me?
All just very fun. The catfish just hanging out. And so
Mhm.
Percy, he goes, he realizes he's not imagining the voice, and
Yeah.
he heads
Well, hold on.
toward.
There's one small part before this where he's just kind of sitting with himself and this catfish, and he is thinking about the bystanders. He thinks those poor people in the arch were probably toast. I couldn't protect them. I was no hero. Maybe I should just stay down here with the catfish, join the other bottom feeders. It's like, ouch. Ooh, Percy, being a little hard on yourself there, man. Like, believe me, I'm the first one to shit on you, dude. I'm the first one to call you out for being an idiot. But like, I don't know,
You
give
did your
yourself some
best.
slack. You did your best. That was a tough situation to be in.
I mean, it's unfortunate that you put yourself in that tough situation, but
Yes,
once you were in it, I feel like you handled it
you
as
did
best you
everything you
could.
could.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And he gets some affirmation, thankfully, from this voice that was not in his head. He hears it again. Percy, take the sword. Your father believes in you. And this time he's like, all right, I know this isn't coming from my head now. So he starts looking around and is, asking, where are you? And through the muck and the gloom, he sees a woman the color of the water, a ghost in the current, floating just above Riptide, his sword. She had long, billowing hair, and her eyes, barely visible, were green like Percy's. He's got his own little Lady of the Lake right now, showing off the
Mhm.
sword.
Well, Arthurian reference. A lump forms in his throat as he says, "Mom?" This person is a ghastly visage. He's now suddenly realizing, is my entire effort to go to the underworld to bring you back for naught?
Yep.
Is this all without point? Are you dead? And thankfully, she responds, no, child, only a messenger, though your mother's fate is not as hopeless as you believe. So now he's got the other big, really important
Yes.
detail, which is my mom is in the underworld, maybe, but she might not be dead. I have a chance. I'm being told that I have a good chance. That's great. And then she tells him another very important detail, giving them some direction. Go to the beach in Santa Monica. It is your father's will. Before you descend into the underworld, you must go to Santa Monica. Which is good. We need direction.
Yeah, that's the
Exactly.
first bit of direction we've gotten outside of go to the underworld.
This is a proper secondary objective.
Yep.
And it is a little frustrating then, because she's like, I can't stay. This river is just so gross. Humans suck. Bye. Oh, by the way, you must go to Santa Monica. I'm going to reiterate that. And Percy, do not trust the gifts, which is a reference to the shoes. But also, why not just say, do not trust the shoes? You
Yep.
asshole.
Yeah, she was talking to Chiron and was like,
I
how do I
know.
be mysterious and only partially helpful?
Percy says, wait, my clarifying question, what gifts? But it's too late. She was already gone.
And she's gone.
Which, if you're trying to get him to the right conclusion, and you are planning on telling him anyway, why not be why not lead with that? Hey, get your sword, don't trust the shoes, go to Santa Monica. Those three things. That's what you need to know. But it's like, I'll be very clear. Get the sword, go to Santa Monica. Ooh, vague. I don't know. It
Dude,
bothered me.
I got my hands up right now. I don't know. I have no idea. And I'm so glad that it frustrated you because it also frustrated me. I was thinking the exact same thing. I literally underline. Why didn't you lead with this? With do
Yeah.
not trust the gifts.
Oh shit, I'm running out of time. What was I supposed to tell him?
And it's
Uh
like the John Mulaney bit where you're writing a happy birthday card. Big ass H. Big ass A. Ooh, all right. We're running out. We're gonna do kind of a weird little P here. Then we're gonna
yes.
put another little P underneath that P, and it's kind of like they're stacked. And then the Y is just gonna have to kind of curl down. All right. That's happy, kind of. That's basically what she did. She came in with big ass H and then got to the end. I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's disgusting here.
Exactly. It's frustrating, but it's all right. And so Percy, now with frankly it feels like more questions than answers. He
Yeah,
says, all
but a
right,
renewed vigor.
but a renewed vigor. Exactly. He's like, all right, I can't
Mhm.
just sit here and drown myself at the bottom of the river because I'm immune to that.
That's right. And that affirmation, "Your father believes in you," it's ringing through his head. And she did call him brave. And Percy says, "Well, unless she was talking to the catfish, which is still floating around." Which, huge if true. That side story, Percy Catson, the catfish of yore and legend, I wanna hear that.
Yeah, more of this catfish.
That's right. The catfish was actually the favored son of Poseidon. It's like,
The
"You are
true
my
main
most
character.
favorite creation."
But we do get a follow-up of good guy Percy. He climbs out of the river. A small girl says, Mama, that boy walked out of the river. And she says, that's nice, dear. But he's dry. That's nice, dear. Paying zero attention. And
0
Percy
attention.
catches one of the news reporters saying something about survivors. And Percy feels a surge of relief that hopefully everyone made it out safely. He pushes through the crowd, realizes that they're now catching on that it was an adolescent boy, but he doesn't stay around long enough for people to realize it was him, as finally Annabeth spots him and goes, Percy! Or rather, Annabeth
I was
and
gonna
Grover
say,
spot him, and Grover bleats Percy.
yep. He goes,
My apologies.
"Percy!"
Oh, great Grover impression.
Thank you.
He gets a bear hug or a goat hug.
That's true.
And he mentions that he kind of fell 630 feet.
Yeah, he said, "We thought you'd gone to Hades the hard way," which, okay, names don't matter again, whatever.
Oh,
But also, wouldn't that actually be the easy way? Just to
that would
kill
be the
yourself?
easy way.
I feel like what they're doing is the hard way.
You are objectively correct.
I have nothing more to add. That
Exactly.
was it. That was the full thought.
And so Percy relays the rest of the story, the fact that the woman was Echidna, the dog was Chimera, and they hear a news reporter saying, Percy Jackson, that's right, Dan. Channel 12 has learned that the boy who may have caused this explosion fits the description of a wanted young man. Percy's like, yep, sucks. So they head back to the Amtrak station, and somehow they make it back without being spotted and board the train just before it pulls out for Denver.
Hooray.
And that's the end of it.
That's the end. Okay.
But
Little double feature done, but we still have more. We still have more, Connor.
we do. So why don't we get a train car to ourselves? And as we head toward Denver, I got a few myths for you.
I love it. And it's business class? Ooh, we're bougie bougie.
We are bougie bougie. We are not a bunch of 12-year-olds and a
That's true. We have
26-year-old
disposable
saint.
income.
So let's start with who invented the chariot? Because Annabeth brings this up. She says, my mom invented the chariot and your dad brought the horses. We're not going to touch on Poseidon creating horses because I'd like to do a deeper dive on Poseidon's relationship with horses at another time. But also because Athena is strangely very associated with horses. You wouldn't think it, but she is. So the first thing I did is I just Googled who invented the chariot, Greek mythology. And wouldn't you be surprised to find that it doesn't immediately pop up and say Athena? So I thought that's not right. So let me go scrub, and I tried to find some primary sources that would attach Athena to chariots. The first primary source I could find, and the only one that very specifically states that Athena invented chariots, is a single source. It is the Homeric hymn to Aphrodite, not even the one to Athena. It was written sometime between the 7th and 4th centuries BC, and it says, First is the daughter of Zeus who holds the aegis, bright-eyed Athene, for she has no pleasure in the deeds of golden Aphrodite, but delights in wars and in the work of Ares, in strifes and battles, and in preparing famous crafts. She taught the first earthly craftsmen to make chariots of war and cars variously wrought with bronze. So the first notable thing there is that Athena is specifically noted with teaching craftsmen how to make war chariots. War chariots at the time, the ones that would have been used, would have been two-wheel chariots. So if you imagine the traditional chariot in your head that you would see riding around a track in ancient
Yep.
times, you probably see the single open cart with two wheels. That is the war chariot that Athena is credited with having taught the ancient Greek people how to make.
It's the classic, like, Ben-Hur chariot race chariot.
Exactly. It does also mention that cars variously wrought with bronze were part of what she taught the craftsmen. That could be a reference to just the use of metals in the making of any early vehicles, carts, chariots, etc. But this is the only thing that even gets close to saying Athena invented chariots. That just seems to be kind of a social understanding with no primary source outside of this thing that I could find. What's interesting is we do have a lot of references to Athena's association with horses to go with this. And that's probably where that idea of her properly inventing the chariot does come from.
Mhm.
So there's a 2nd century Greek geographer named Pausanias. He went all over Greece and took notes. And a variety of his notes do touch on the worship of Athena in a couple of places, and her surname, specifically, of Hippia, Hippia meaning horse. He writes, Athena had the surname Hippia. According to their account, when the battle of the gods and giants took place, the goddess drove the chariot and horses against Enceladus. Important, her role as the charioteer gains her some notoriety as a horse deity. While Pausanias was in Athens and among Athenians, he observed that there is a place called the Hill of Horses, which has a dedication to Poseidon, but also Athena. It has a dedication to Poseidon Hippia and Athena Hippia. Poseidon, horse god, Athena, horse goddess, basically. A different place that he went also had a different epithet still tying her to horses. He was in Corinth, and there was a temple that he noted referred to Athena as Athena Calintis. Calintis being tamer of horses by means of a bridle, because the word for bridle was kalinos. The other most notable association of Athena and horses is, of course, the Trojan horse. So Athena does have a lot of association with horses. Why do I talk about horses so much? Because it means that Athena specifically doesn't need Poseidon to have invented the chariot.
Damn. She
So
could have done that all on her own.
she
Ugh.
could have done that all on her own. That leaves us with two conclusions. One, Annabeth went out of her way to placate Percy and be open and work with him because she saw he was extending a bridge, and to say, you know what? Technically, your dad is the father of horses, so we could not have done this without you. Or two, Rick didn't do as much research as I did. Either is fine.
I do love the idea that Annabeth is really thinking. She's just like smoke coming out of her ears, like there's gotta be like something, right? And she the one thing she got is like a technicality. Like, all right, fuck it. I'll give it to Percy.
But the thing that really got me, the thing that sent me down this whole rabbit hole in the first place, is when you try to search for who invented the chariot in Greek mythology, the first name that pops up is Erichthonius. And I was like, wait, that is not the name I expected when I Googled this. I
Yeah, I
thought
wasn't
for
expecting to
sure,
find Eric here. Yeah.
yes, I was expecting to see Athena. So I was like, all right then, who is this Erichthonius character? Well, Erichthonius is the son of Hephaestus and the king of Athens at one point.
Okay, Athens. That's
Athens
something.
related, it is.
Mhm.
He is almost, definitely not, but almost a child of Athena. And notably, the sources that do exist say that he invented the four-wheel chariot. So we have a distinct thing. Athena teaches people how to make war chariots with two wheels, and Erichthonius invents the four-wheel chariot. So Erichthonius has an unusual circumstance of birth because Athena is a virgin goddess. She prides herself on that. And Hephaestus tries to rape her. Athena
Okay.
is not having this and is, as a strong maiden goddess, able to push him away. But Hephaestus still finishes, and it gets on
Oh.
Athena's leg and According to the story, she wipes it off with a piece of wool and throws it to the ground in disgust.
Yep.
And that
Fair.
semen that she throws to the earth, because it's godly seed, cannot go unborn, and that is Erichthonius. And Athena, feeling partially responsible for it, puts the baby in a box and hands it to the king of Athens and says, "This is your problem now."
That is absolutely absurd. So Erichthonius was a divine cum shot.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Yep.
So Erichthonius, for the unusual circumstances of his birth, is in some versions of the story said to have nasty, scaly, big feet, like a snake. And so he wants to hide his nasty big feet. And it is said that that is the reason that he invented the first four-wheeled, four-horse chariot.
'Cause he needed that much space?
Because he didn't want anyone to see his feet. A two-wheeled chariot would have been open on the back, and he didn't want anyone looking from behind to
Oh,
see his feet. A
okay.
four-wheeled chariot is totally closed.
Gotcha. I thought you were saying his feet were so big they wouldn't even fit in a two-wheel chariot.
Nah,
That's
they're just
unwieldy.
described as big, ugly, and scaly. They're not
I
that
see.
unwieldy.
Okay.
And from around the 2nd century AD, Pseudo-Hyginus wrote, Erichthonius first invented the four-horse chariot, as we said before, and also first established sacrifices to Minerva and a temple on the citadel of the Athenians. So that's one source. And it says that he invented the four-horse chariot, so I'm willing to say, hey, that's one source, that's good enough. What's really cool, though, is we also have an inscription from a stele called the Parian Chronicle. And this stele was actually meant to serve as a chronology of the history of Greece. And so it was inscribed with the history of the region, ranging from the years starting in roughly 1600 BC, going all the way to 300 BC. Unfortunately, all that's left of it are fragments, and not all of them are legible. But on one of those fragments that is partially legible, there is a reference to, at the time of the first Panathenaea, Erichthonius yoked up a chariot and showed how to race and gave the Athenians their name or something. This is a part that's not legible. So the blank of the mother of the gods appeared at Cybele. Doesn't really matter. The important thing is he, quote unquote, showed the Athenians how to race. Does that mean that he necessarily invented the chariot? No. But it does seem to, again, just be sort of a popular myth that he invented the four-wheel chariot for this reason that is pervasive, at the very least in modern times, and there are some sources to back it up. So who invented the chariot? Athena. But who kind of made an addition and added a couple of wheels for his weird feet? Erichthonius.
Okay. Loved that. All of that was great.
I did mention that that one was a weird rabbit hole that I did not expect to go down. The next thing that we have to talk about is Echidna, mother of monsters.
Yes.
Echidna is a bit more straightforward, and as she's a goddess, we are going to be taking a bit of a surface level approach. So let's start with the big details. What did she look like? Well, the Percy Jackson description that we just got has her with snake-like skin, fanged teeth, reptilian slits for eyes. That's all totally incorrect, actually. Echidna, from Hesiod's Theogony, is described as half of her is a nymph with a fair face and eyes glancing, but the other half is a monstrous serpent, terrible, enormous, and squirming and voracious, there in Earth's secret places. So, to summarize, she's actually a beautiful woman from the waist up, and only a terrible snake-like monster from the waist down.
I see.
We can learn about her parents, who are Keto and Phorcys, being the two that we will eventually meet in the series way down the line when they're at the aquarium in Atlanta. But for here, what's most important is that we do have to take from the theogony that this is a reference to she generally. It's a generic she. And so most scholars agree that that is probably Keto. And most children of Keto are by Phorcys or Phorcys, and so therefore we can assume that that is probably correct. The other interpretation is that she could refer to the Oceanid Caliro, which would make her father probably Chrysaor, but since most scholars tend to agree with the former, that's what I'm going to run with. So parents are Keto and Phorcys. Unless, of course, you are our good friend Pseudo Apollodorus,
I was
in
gonna
which
say,
case
it's
you can
gotta
write
be
whatever you want.
Pseudo-Apollodorus.
Yup. In which case you can write literally whatever you want, and then Echidna was born to Gaia and Tartarus.
Hell yeah.
So, like, why not? What's interesting is that actually may come from the confusion surrounding Python and Echidna. Python and Echidna are often misconstrued for one another, and Python is born of Gaia. So that makes a little bit more sense as to perhaps how Pseudo Apollodorus could have gotten mixed up, but check your sources, man. And then finally, Pausanias, who we actually just talked about in our previous myth, the 2nd century geographer, he lists Echidna's parents as the Oceanid Styx, the goddess of the river Styx, and Pyrrhus or Pyrrhus, who he even himself admitted in his firsthand account that he had no idea who that was.
He said, I don't know who this bitch is. No clue.
So I'm going to go with Keto and Phorcys. But then who is Echidna the mother of? Monsters. Lots
All
and
monsters?
lots of monsters. Not all monsters, but many monsters. The big ones that we will need to talk about is, of course, the Chimera, one of the most famous, but we're going to do a whole section on the Chimera right after this, so we'll hold off on that one. But there's actually 2 dogs that she's the mother of. So the first is a 2-headed dog that guards Geryon's cattle. Geryon is a child of Chrysaor and a giant that Heracles goes and interacts with, and one of Heracles' tasks actually is to go and kill Orthus, the dog, and he does, because Heracles, that's what he does. A second dog, Kerberos, or Cerberus. Need I say more? You know him, you love him. What's interesting
True.
is here he is not described as a 3-headed dog, but in the Theogony, he is described as a 50-headed, relentless, and strong dog.
Damn.
Yeah. By the way, Orthus, Cerberus, and the next monster we're going to talk about are all from the Theogony. The last one is the Lernaean Hydra, another monster that Hercules kills. So all 3 of these are monsters that Heracles will at some point face off against and successfully defeat.
She's
Yeah,
popping out classics.
she has a great track record. So the Lernaean Hydra is a guard for the underworld. It's a lake monster, and, well, what can I say? Heracles kills it. Interesting side detail. Hydras, lots of heads. All of her children, the thing that we have from the Theogony, lots of heads. I don't know why. That's just a thing.
Yeah, it's better than one. So
I guess it just makes them more monstrous to be like, you know what? What defines that creature? Heads. Too many heads.
Ton of heads. So many heads.
Well, there are other sources. So those are the 3 that are listed in the Theogony. We have a fragment from a poem. The poet, his name was Lassus of Hermione, and he lists the Sphinx as a child of Echidna as well, and also Typhon. All of these are probably by Typhon, though it is not explicitly said. Typhon is Echidna's husband and is heavily associated with dragons and monsters himself, so that would be the most appropriate matchup. And this poem comes from the 6th century BC, so it's back there as well. Good primary source. There are other sources that also name the Caucasian eagle. This is the eagle that eats the liver out of Prometheus every day over and over again. They add on Ladon, the dragon that guards the Garden of Hesperides, another creature that Heracles will kill. And this one's a little bit of a stretch because only Typhon is named as its sire, the Nemean lion, which we saw in chapter 13.
We did.
And which Heracles kills. This woman was just popping out challenges for Heracles.
I was gonna say, so she must fucking hate Heracles.
That is specifically what I would think. Crazy then that she works for Zeus.
Yeah.
But we do have 3 more monsters that get added. The first by our good friend Pseudo Apollodorus, who adds the
He's back.
Chromionian sow.
Woo!
He's back, and he's adding a really big boar.
Finally, I was waiting for a really big boar.
And then Pseudo-Hyginus added Gorgon, as in the mother of Medusa from versions where she's born as a monster, not as a person and then cursed into a monster. And Scylla, like the sea monster, the one that Odysseus sees.
Yes.
And so that is my brief breakdown on Echidna and her many horrible children.
What a family.
What a family indeed. But let's talk about, from this chapter, her favorite child. I don't actually know that it's her favorite child, but if that was the list, to be honest, I think Chimera's probably the coolest. And there's a lot of
It's
cool
gotta be up
monsters
there.
there. It's gotta be up there. It's got 3 heads, but they're all different this time. Orthus and Cerberus, they only have dog heads. The Hydra
It's all the same
only
type
got
of head.
Hydra heads.
That's right.
This one's
We've
got
got
3
variety with
different heads.
Chimera.
So, as we just talked about, Chimera is the child of Echidna and probably Typhon. That is stated in the Theogony as well as other sources, widely agreed upon. Ancient artistic depictions are also heavily in agreement. The Chimera should look as such: a lion's head with a mane, a goat's head rising out of its back. This is where the fire breath comes from, by the way. And a snake/serpent/dragon for a tail. Ancient sources really didn't have different words for these things, so snake, dragon, serpent, take it as you will. Snake tail.
Gotcha.
Let's go back a few details. Let's start with the lion's head. I mentioned that the lion's head is always depicted with a mane. This is probably where the confusion that the Chimera is a boy comes from, but Chimera, singular thing by the way, is actually female and uses she/her pronouns across most of mythology. Specifically, Chimera translates to she-goat,
But
which is how we
she
know that she's
lion.
female.
But she's
And
mainly
that's
lion.
the interesting. You would think
Uh-huh.
that. And Percy Jackson specifically doesn't even have the goat head. It only has goat hooves. But here, in all of the ancient sources, the body, as you put it, actually is mainly lion. But the goat head rises out of the back and is apparently the most important head of the beast. And with that, it is, as I stated, where the fire breath comes from. And this traces back to our earliest sources regarding this creature. The Theogony, the Iliad, they all mentioned that it is the goat head that breathes fire. Finally, you do have the serpent tail, which is very straightforward. It's what you would think: a long snake growing from the creature's backside where a tail should be. You and I play a lot of D&D. Let's take a brief aside to talk about the modern depiction of chimeras, which is 3 heads all sticking out the front: goat, dragon, and lion. And in those versions, in all the D&D books since 1st edition, they have the dragon breathing fire, which is probably why we have, in modern contexts, a reduction of the importance of the goat head. Because for much of ancient history, they were aware that the goat head is the one that, if not all of the ancient Greek depictions, were understanding that the goat head is what breathes the fire. But by the time we in our modern context have a far different modern understanding of what a dragon should be,
Right.
we
A
say,
fire-breathing dragon.
put the dragon head on the front and make it breathe the fire. And so that is probably where that mix-up actually happens. To do a little bit more comparing and contrasting, when we look at the chapter we just saw in Percy Jackson, all of the Percy Jackson depictions neglect the goat head. Doesn't matter if you're in the show or the book, there is no goat head, which I think is lame. I think a fire-breathing goat head is really cool.
I agree. I think that's rad.
In this chapter, notably, Echidna calls it her son and uses he/him pronouns for the chimera. That's actually fixed in the show, where they switch it to be she/her, which is more mythologically accurate. Interesting that they're making small changes to fix things. Although I do have my other criticisms for the show, which is that the show opts to give the lion goat horns and a scaly appearance, which I just didn't like. It doesn't vibe, it doesn't look like the ancient art, and I think the ancient art is honestly more horrifying and cooler with its three-headed depiction.
Oh, yeah, it's a crazy looking creature.
So, take that as you will.
Mhm.
Since Percy fights the Chimera, and he, I would say, loses, I would say this is the first fight that we see that he properly
Oh,
does not win.
pretty handedly loses, yeah.
He does not slay it. So, was there a way that he could have done better? Is there a way to kill the Chimera? Yes, there is. We're going to talk about Bellerophon, because I get to choose what myths we talk about, damn it, and I want to talk about Bellerophon.
This is a dictatorship and you're the ruler.
Damn right it is.
That's what you keep telling me.
So, Bellerophon slash Bellerophontes slash Hipponuus is the son of the god Poseidon and Eurynome, the wife of King Glaucus. The first thing that we have to know is that Hipponuus, we're never going to refer to him by this name again. This is probably his original name, and then Bellerophon is his then earned title, so to speak. As I said, the first important thing is that he is the son of Poseidon and the wife of a king. Makes him important. And most of the version of today's myth that we're going to be looking over comes from the Iliad, specifically during a battle of the Trojan War. The Greek hero Diomedes asks of the ancestry of Glaucus, different Glaucus, not the same guy, who is actually the great grandson of the OG Glaucus and the grandson of Bellerophon. Glaucus tells the story of Bellerophon. The first thing he clarifies is that Glaucus was father, not by blood, but by respect, to Bellerophontes, and Bellerophontes has 3 children. The first is killed by Ares, the second is courted by Zeus, which makes all of the gods hate Bellerophontes, and then finally you have Hippolocus, who is the only normal one, I guess.
Okay.
And as he's setting up this story, he refers to Bellerophontes as Bellerophontes the Blameless. And every source that talks about this guy uses this same title for him, this epithet. He is Bellerophontes the Blameless. And that's important because we're about to hear about some crazy shit that he did. And you just have to remember every single time, it's not his fault. It's literally in
Okay.
his name.
Locked in. Understood.
So, he's a son of Poseidon, he's being raised by a king, and his early life is defined by 2 major events, neither of which actually come from the Iliad, so I went and found them in other sources, such as an Olympian ode from around the 5th century BC, Hesiod's catalogs of women fragment from the 8th or 7th century, a variety of places. The first event is that he comes across Pegasus. In one version, Poseidon gifts Bellerophontes Pegasus. Why? Because Bellerophontes is just that guy, I guess. He likes him a lot. And this comes from the Catalog of Women fragment. And that's it. That's the whole story. Poseidon just goes, hey, here, have a gift. You're a cool son. In the other version that comes from the Olympian Ode, Athena gets Pegasus for him, comes to him in a dream, and says, hey, wake up. There's a magic horse I left you. It's outside. Go saddle it right now. And he wakes up and he finds that there's a golden saddle next to him. And he grabs it, he runs outside, and he puts it on Pegasus. And he just has Pegasus. The gods love this guy, right up until
Hell
his
yeah.
daughter dates Zeus, and then they don't. Also, I said dates. This is Zeus we're talking about.
I
You
was
can
gonna
know that
say,
I do not mean
very
dates.
PG.
Yeah. So that's the first major event, is he is gifted Pegasus in all versions. The next major life event of Bellerophontes is that he accidentally kills somebody. Reminder, he is
We've
Bellerophontes
all
the
been there.
Blameless. I literally could not find a source that explains how or why he kills this man, simply that it was an accident.
Okay.
Or,
Yep.
if it wasn't an accident, that it was the right thing to do. So,
Okay, it was
most
justified.
accounts, yes, most accounts list this person as the noble Corinthian Belarus. And this is actually where Bellerophontes gets his new name, is because he kills Bellerus.
Okay.
So, even if you're blameless, he knows that murder is wrong, and so, no matter the circumstances, he needs to be cleansed of his wrongdoing. And so this is the part that comes from the Iliad. So he goes to Proitos, the king of Argos. And while he's there, Antea, the wife of Argos, falls in love with the young, notably well-endowed hero.
That is an important aspect. That is
It
something that
is
needs to be noted.
specifically included.
Okay, so bro is packing. Got it.
But Bellerophontes, being blameless, perfect as he is, says, another man's wife, I could never. I have sins to purge. And so he says, sorry, babe, I just can't. You have a husband. And so her, having been scorned by the rejection, goes to her husband, King Proitos, and says, would you be killed, O Proitos? Then murder Bellerophontes, who tried to lie with me in love, though I was unwilling.
Oh,
But
what the
Proitos,
fuck?
yeah, but Proitos, he looks at Bellerophontes and he says, yeah, I can't do that. And so what he does is, look, maybe it's the winged horse, or maybe it's the dude's rippling muscles, but either way, he says, yeah, babe, I'll handle it. And he writes a letter. He writes a letter to her dad, his father-in-law, who's also a king. He's the king of Lycia. And he says, hey, sending this guy your way. Please kill him. And so he hands him the letter, and Bellerophontes, unaware of what's in the letter, flies to Lycia on Pegasus and meets with Iobates, the king of Lycia. And Iobates, at first, sees a man fly in on a winged horse and does the
Yes.
reasonable thing. He says, dude, that's sick. Let's throw a feast.
Dude, this might be my new favorite character in all of mythology. This guy's fucking awesome.
I told you that we were doing this one because I choose the rules, and this one is so fun. So he's there, and Iobates, after 9 days of feasting and celebrating, finally says, hey, wait a minute, why are you here? And Bellerophontes says, oh, that's right, I've got a letter from your son-in-law. And so he hands him the letter from Proitos. And now Iobates has a problem.
It's
Because
like,
he's been hanging
I
out with
actually
this guy.
kind of like this guy.
Yes. He's been hanging out with this guy for 9 days, and he's learned 2 things. 1, I kind of like this guy, and 2, I cannot kill this man. That would be
Absolutely, the
so hard.
gods favor him so much.
Yes. And so he says, hold on. I have 2 problems. 1, I gotta kill you. 2, I have this giant, evil, fire-breathing monster terrorizing the countryside of my kingdom, and no one can even get near it. So, win-win, right? Either you kill the monster or it kills you. Bellerophontes, I have a job for you. And he's like, okay. And so he says, I need you to go and kill the Chimera. And the thing is, Athena is still watching over Bellerophontes. And he has a winged demigod horse. So it's really not a problem. It doesn't matter which version you go with, but sometimes Athena has to give him a little bit of help. Other times he literally just swoops down and kills the beast. In one version, which I only found this according to a secondary source, but it's so rad I couldn't leave it out. In this version, he stabs the neck of the goat head with a lead spear while it's breathing flames, causing the lead to melt in its throat, and that's what kills the Chimera,
Ooh.
which is so sick.
Ooh. Oh, that's like a Mortal Kombat fatality. That's rad. That's dope.
Right? It's so cool. And so he goes back to Iobates, and Iobates is like, well, that didn't work. Everybody else that I sent to that monster died, but apparently you're built to different stuff. So he has 2 more ideas. The first is he says, all right, there's this tribe of respected warrior people called the Solimi, and we don't get along. So can you go fight them? And he thinks there's no way Bellerophontes is going to win in this fight. He's so dead. This is an entire culture of war. Oh my God, he killed them all. So he gets back and he's like, all right, I did that. Do you need help with anything else? And Iobates is like, yeah, the Amazons. Can you go fight the Amazons?
He's really reaching now. He's like,
And
all
he,
right.
and he even defeats them.
That's
He
insane.
beats the Amazons.
This guy can't be stopped.
Dude, he is built of different stuff. And so out of ideas, Iobates is like, fuck, what do I do? So he says, fuck it, and he gathers all of his friends, all the bravest men in his kingdom. And with them, he lays a trap for Bellerophontes, who kills every last one of them.
Not surprised.
It is only after all of this that then Iobates thinks to himself, oh, you are quite literally made of different stuff. Because otherwise, how
Yeah.
could you have survived all that?
How is this possible? Yeah.
And so he finally puts it together, a bit late if you ask me. The flying horse should have been the giveaway.
Yeah, with the golden saddle and his beautiful
Yes!
rippling muscles and Fabio-esque hair blowing through the breeze.
Specifically. And so finally he's like, I get it. You're a demigod. My bad. And he says, you know what? Here's my daughter's hand in marriage and half of all kingly privilege and a bunch of land. The end. He says, fuck it. I give up. You are not going to die. Here is half of everything I own, including my daughter. Please stop being my problem.
That's phenomenal.
And so that is the story of Bellerophontes the Blameless.
That is the best myth that you've shared thus far.
It is so fun. And that is all of our myths for today's chapter. Chapters for our two chapter mega
Chapters,
episode.
big double feature. And you know what? Because we're doing so many crazy things, Connor, I actually have some facts for you.
I would love that.
I have some facts about Echidna, but not the mother of monsters, the horrifying abominations that walk amongst us.
I
Uh,
almost did this. I'm so
the
excited. I didn't end up doing it.
monotremes, the echidnas. They're also known as spiny anteaters. They are one of only two egg-laying mammals on this planet, the other being, of course, the humble platypus. Everything about them is wrong, truthfully. They spit in the face of whatever God made them, or perhaps were created outside of the purview of whatever God created everything else. The males, this is perhaps most infamous, have a four-headed penis.
What?
Now, don't get that mistaken with they have four penises. It is one shaft, four heads, all
I
just
kind of
kind of
hate that.
jammed in there in the end. Almost it looks like a weird fucked up foot.
Uh,
That is perhaps what they are known for most because what the fuck. However, there are some lesser known facts about how fucked up and weird they are. Now, they eat ants and termites, but the echidnas actually lack teeth. They've got no teeth. They instead consume their food with a long, sticky tongue. They'll kind of like loll it out and grab whatever ants or bugs they're going to eat, and they suck it into their mouths. And there are these really rough, almost like sandpaper padding inside their mouths that they'll just grind the bugs against with their sticky tongue. And then once the bugs are dust, they'll swallow it. Isn't that
wow.
awful?
That is terrible. I love that. No wonder they're named
Now,
after the mistress of monsters.
slightly less awful, their babies, little baby echidnas, those are called puggles.
Wait, that's so cute.
They are born from eggs. They do not have teeth, but they do have an egg tooth at the very tip of their snout that will help them break out of their egg. They are born without spines. So they're breaking through. They're just these little gel creatures without their spines fully formed. They've got a little like nail at the end of their nose that they will headbutt into the inside of their egg. And then once they break out, because they are effectively invertebrates at this point, they climb over to their mother and hide within their mother's pouch. Now, you would think, oh, so that means that an echidna is a marsupial. And you would be very astute, but you'd also be very wrong. Echidnas, I said this at the very beginning, are not technically marsupials, they are monotremes, which is an ancient form of marsupial. So, slightly different thing, but the mechanics are largely the same. They're also built different. Their back legs are backwards. They are facing the opposite direction of what you'd expect. And that is so they can dig better and push dirt out as they're burrowing. This is not specific only to echidnas. There are other types of rodents and vermin that burrow that have this feature, like moles. They're perhaps the most famous for having their backwards feet. But the
Huh.
echidna just kind of specced into everything. It hit
Yeah.
randomize and character creation and said, I also have the backwards feet.
And lay eggs and don't have
And lay
teeth.
eggs. They also have spikes. They are very spiky creatures. Their spines are not like those of porcupines. They are unable to be shot at enemies or creatures that are trying to eat them. They're just specialized hairs that'll just stab ya. And they
I
don't
get
do
that.
anything special outside of just be there and in the way, which in a way kind of explains the echidna in a nutshell.
Yeah, it does. Wow.
So the reason that echidnas are called echidnas is because they are based of course, Echidna herself. But why did people choose this name? Why did the Australians do this to the mother of monsters? Well, it's actually quite simple. They looked at this little freak and they said, wow, it's like a mammal, but it also is like a reptile. You know what mythologically was a mammal and a reptile? Echidna, because she was a woman and a snake.
Dog, it's all
Henceforth,
coming together.
you shall be known as Echidna.
Wow.
Isn't that exciting? There you go, Connor. My gift to you for doing this double feature and going hard on the myths. Those are my Echidna facts.
Props to you. I would clap, but that would come across really horribly in a
That would
podcast.
be really bad on the audio.
But those were great. I looked up a picture of them because, I was looking up Echidna anyway. And I thought they were horrifying little monsters. And I was right.
You're 100% right.
I've been
Just trust your
validated.
gut. They're
I
freaks.
should trust that I can judge books by their cover.
And that's the whole kind of thesis of this podcast, actually. Judge little gremlins. Beauty is skin deep. And that's the most important thing. Nothing deeper.
I mean, that's what I learned from our Medusa episode.
Exactly. See, it's all coming together.
That was fantastic. Thank you for bringing some facts, Jack.
Of course.
Do we have
And
any
hey,
further thoughts on our chapters?
I think that we've left it all on the field. I have nothing more to add with this crazy double feature. No more Echidna facts, but I am very, very excited going forward. We're properly in the second half of the book. We've got all of the pieces that have been set and starting to move around. We've got some more intrigue. And I think next week is going to be really, really good because I saw the title of the chapter and I started to remember stuff.
Mm-hmm. So we will pick up next time with chapter 15, where a god buys our party of heroes some cheeseburgers. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to support our content, please be sure to leave a review, share with your friends, and follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, this has been Notes from the Oracle. That was a fun one. It was definitely
That was a
long
good
because
one.
it was the 2-chapter mega episode, but I had a lot of fun with that. You caught me by
Yeah, that
surprise
was
with the
great.
Echidna facts. I deadass almost
I
did
know.
that.
I wanted to keep it a little secret, a little surprise. I figured you'd appreciate it.
That was fantastic. That was lovely. I'm so glad you enjoyed Bellerophontes too. I
Oh,
literally,
what a
in my
fucking
notes,
G.
my subtitle was his. So I had his name as the title, and my subtitle is what I said because I get to choose the myths we talk about. Damn it! Because I was trying to look for information on Chimera, and this Bellerophontes guy kept coming up, and I was like, "Who is this man?"
Who the fuck is this guy?
And so I was like, "I gotta
He's
know
the
more."
hero.
He
He's the
is.
capital H hero.
He is that guy. So
He is.
I couldn't resist.
That's phenomenal. No, that was great.